The crate wasn't supposed to be there. It didn't belong to any rescue cache, any supply drop, or any recent operation. It was old, but not rusted. Stamped with a U.S. military seal, buried perfectly between spruce roots in the middle of nowhere, it looked untouched by time, except for one detail. On top of it, laid flat against the frost, was a photo. A woman in uniform. Young. Smiling. And on the back, a name. Her mother's name. But the photo was dated 1983. 12 years before she was born. And the crate was warm. The wind cut sideways, dragging fists of snow across the clearing and slamming them into her goggles like frozen sandpaper. Ava Holland adjusted the strap beneath her hood and pushed forward, leaning into the storm with practiced force. Her boots sank past the ankles with every step, the snow granular and deep, fresh powder over uneven terrain. She'd left the ranger station 4 hours ago to check the satellite repeater on Ridge 9, expecting a routine climb and a few hours of technical work. The forecast had been clear. Nothing but a light breeze and flurries. But Alaskan weather didn't care about forecasts. Now, she was caught in whiteout conditions, GPS flickering, radio fading. Visibility, 20 feet at best. And the only rule in this kind of whiteout was simple: don't stop moving. Her pack bounced with every step, filled with standard SAR gear, flares, thermal blanket, sidearm, medical kit, and a collapsible shovel. It was the shovel she reached for now. She'd stumbled into a low draw, a shallow depression shielded slightly from the wind, and saw something odd, a mound of snow rising in a perfect rectangle. Not a drift. Not a bush. A box. Her instincts kicked in. She knelt and brushed at the mound. Her gloves scraped over ice, then metal. Metal. A container. Buried maybe 2 feet deep. Flat on top. Thick steel edges. No rust. Ava's breath fogged up her inner lens as she knelt lower. Using the edge of the shovel, she chipped away layers of packed snow, revealing a shape. A crate. About 4 feet long. 2 feet wide. Dark green. U.S. military stencil. Property of USAMRIAD. Hashtag 1092 of / Gen Bio restricted. That last part stopped her. Gen Bio? She wasn't military, but she'd read enough government disaster briefs to recognize that abbreviation. Genetic Biology Division. Why the hell was a Gen Bio crate buried up here? She brushed the frost off the top panel. That's when she saw it. A photo. Plastic sleeved. Laminated. Placed perfectly on top, almost like a marker. She peeled it off. It was an old Polaroid, the edges yellowed, but not warped. A woman. Military fatigues. No name tape, but a wide, familiar smile. Ava's heart skipped. It was her mother. Not like she'd ever seen her before, younger, sharper. A soldier. A version of her mother that predated every childhood memory Ava had. On the back of the photo, in clean military typewriter ink. Lieutenant Natalie Holland. November 2nd, 1983. 12 years before Ava was born. 12 years before her mother died in a car crash. Ava sat back on her heels, the wind screaming overhead. The snow muffled the outside world, turning sound into pressure. Her breath steamed fast and shallow. Was this some elaborate hoax? An emergency beacon that had gotten hacked? But that didn't explain the warmth. She pressed her glove to the crate again. The metal wasn't cold. In fact, it was warm. Internal heat source. Like it was running. Alive. Ava pulled the latches, 2 on the side, 1 center. Each clicked open with mechanical precision. No corrosion. No ice buildup. The seal hissed as pressure equalized. She lifted the lid. Inside was darkness, and the faintest pulse. Not light. Not sound. A feeling. A steady rhythm beneath the surface of some kind of metallic cloth. She reached inside, gloved fingers brushing against synthetic fiber. The shape was strange, too long for a newborn, too short for a full-grown adult. Not heavy. But warm. She hesitated. Then pulled the object out and set it gently on the snow. It was wrapped tight, sealed in layers of reflective thermal mesh. But it moved. Just slightly. A twitch. A shift. Then, a low, muffled sound. Ava ripped back the mesh. And stared. Inside was a child. Pale skin. Hair matted. Eyes closed. But breathing. Alive. And he wasn't older than 8. She froze. He looked. No. That was impossible. But he looked exactly like a childhood photo of her older brother, the one who died before she was born. A brother her mother had told her never existed. Open. Ava crouched beside the boy, her hands trembling inside her gloves. He was breathing, slow, even, but didn't react when she peeled the remaining mesh away from his face. His skin was warm. Not just not cold, but body temperature warm, like he'd been inside a heated room moments before. But there was no heater. Just the crate. Just the snow. Just the storm. She pressed her fingers gently to his neck, pulse steady. No signs of frostbite. No tremors. His clothes were synthetic, unfamiliar, designed more for lab containment than winter gear. Thin, reflective, seamless. No shoes. His eyelids fluttered. And then, he whispered. Ava. Her body locked. She hadn't said her name. She hadn't spoken a single word since finding him. Hey, she said, softly now, her voice catching in her throat. Can you hear me? Do you know who I am? He didn't respond. Just breathed. Then he opened his eyes. Pale blue. Glowing faintly at the edges. Not from any reflection, from within. Ava pulled back slightly, instincts firing warnings in every direction. But the boy didn't move. He wasn't afraid. He looked at her with recognition. As if he'd been waiting. She reached into her jacket and grabbed her comm unit, a compact S8 phone with burst signal capabilities. No signal. Nothing. She turned it off and back on. Still nothing. A short-range beacon was built into her pack. Designed for distress. Last resort stuff. She flipped open the flap and activated it, locking the GPS position and initiating a repeating ping. If any ranger tower still had power, they'd see it. But Ava knew better. This wasn't going to be a standard rescue. She'd have to move him. Now. She fashioned a sling from the reflective mesh and tied it against her chest, securing the boy against her body. He was light, maybe 45 pounds, and still didn't speak again. Just laid there, breathing softly, head tucked against her neck. She closed the crate, snapped a few photos, and took the Polaroid with her. Snow had already begun to refill her excavation. The forest swallowed everything. Even evidence. The climb back up toward Ridge 9 was brutal. The incline was steep, the snow relentless, and the wind felt stronger with every foot gained. But Ava kept moving, her body pushed by adrenaline, her thoughts spiraling. How did he know her name? How did he survive in that crate? Why was her mother's photo there? And why did he look like a memory that shouldn't exist? Her mother had been stationed in Germany during the Cold War. She'd told Ava that much. But only vaguely. No talk of genetics programs or secret missions. And never of a child. Let alone a second one. They reached a rocky overhang just below the ridge, a small outcrop with enough natural shelter to break the wind. She slipped inside, placed the boy gently against the inner wall, and began setting up her thermal tarp. As she worked, the boy sat up. Without sound. His head turned toward her. And then, he spoke again, voice soft, almost neutral. "You were born after the fire." Ava froze. "What fire?" she asked. He didn't answer. His eyes fluttered, and he laid back down. But his voice echoed in her mind like a dropped stone in a frozen lake. She finished rigging the tarp, flipped on her backup heat source, a chemical pack designed to radiate warmth for 6 hours, and pressed it beside him. As it began to glow orange, she noticed something strange. His skin dimmed. Just slightly. The inner glow in his eyes faded too. Ava leaned in. The warmth of the chemical pack was counteracting something. Or suppressing it. His glow returned when the pack cooled. He was responding to temperature. Biochemically. Something about his body changed with thermal input. It wasn't just adaptation. It was design. Ava pulled out her notepad and scribbled observations, hand shaking, breath short. She wasn't just on a search and rescue mission anymore. She was part of something bigger. Something older. Something someone had buried, and maybe not wanted found. Outside the tarp, the storm howled on. But the boy didn't shiver. Didn't stir. He just watched her. And then, without moving his mouth, he spoke again. In her head. "They're coming now. You opened it." Ava blinked hard, trying to shake the echo in her head. The boy hadn't spoken, not with his mouth. There'd been no whisper, no breath, no movement. But the message had landed with razor clarity. "They're coming now. You opened it." She backed away slowly and crouched by the tarp flap. Her eyes scanned the tree line, nothing. The wind tore through branches overhead, snow sliding from limbs in small avalanches. But something was off. The air carried a vibration, low and unnatural, like pressure before a storm. She grabbed the S8 phone again. Still dead. The beacon still blinking. But blinking slower. It had been tampered with. Or jammed. Her throat tightened. This wasn't just a rescue that had gone wrong. This was interference. Ava turned back to the boy. "What do you mean, they're coming?" He sat upright again. Still calm. Still staring. Then, slowly, he pointed upward, past the tree canopy. Ava followed his gaze. And that's when she saw it. Barely visible between storm gaps, a glimmer of light. A drone. Dark, silent, triangulated against the snowfield. Watching. Ava dove out of the tarp and swept the ridge with binoculars. At first, nothing. Then a flicker. A second drone, low to the ground, silently skimming just above the snow like a hunting bird. She cursed under her breath. Military grade. No NAV lights. No broadcast pings. They weren't just watching. They were closing in. She ducked back into the tarp and packed fast, stashing the boy's sling, compressing the heat source, snapping her bag shut in under 60 seconds. She needed elevation. Trees for cover. Altitude to bounce a signal. And she needed to move now. She looped the sling around her chest again, feeling the weight of the boy settle against her spine like a second heartbeat. Still silent. Still warm. Still watching everything. They moved uphill, steep and slow. Her breath fogged through her mask as she pushed through brush and drift, each step heavier than the last. Then, static. Her comms unit crackled. A voice punched through, filtered and sharp. Unit 2 has visual. Target appears mobile. Accompanied. Proceed to contain. Ava's gut sank. They weren't looking for a child. They were looking for him. And they knew she had him. 10 minutes later, she reached the summit of Ridge 9, a thin plateau with frozen brush and an old repeater pole rising from the snow like a lightning rod. The repeater was iced over, but the panel still blinked, alive. Hope surged. She unlatched the case and slammed her comms unit into the sync slot. The screen lit up. Manual relay engaged. Upload in progress. A green bar began crawling across the screen. Just 72%. Then 76%. Then a crack. Behind her. Like a twig snapping under careful weight. She froze. Then slowly turned. Nothing. Just snow. Trees. Wind. But not silence. There was a hum, not mechanical. Biological. Like insects behind your eyes. She turned back to the screen. Upload, 93%. Come on. Another sound. Closer now. She turned fully. And saw a shape. Humanoid. Wrong. Wrapped in black thermal plating, visor slicked with frost, rifle cradled and arms far too long. No insignia. No unit patch. Just matte armor. It didn't move like a soldier. It hovered slightly, boots above the snow, repulsor tech humming faintly. Ava reached for her sidearm. The figure raised its arm first. Not a gun. A beacon emitter. It flared red. Behind her, the boy moved. His hand reached out from the sling, pointed at the figure, and his fingertips glowed bright. The snow between them lifted, suspended in the air like time had stopped. Then a shockwave. Silent but violent. The armored figure collapsed backward, skidding 20 feet across the ice like a puppet yanked by invisible wires. Ava staggered. The boy went limp again. And the upload beeped. Complete. She yanked the comm unit from the dock and stuffed it in her jacket. The signal was out. But now, they knew she could fight back. Or rather, he could. She dropped to her knees beside the boy and whispered, "What are you?" He didn't answer. Didn't have to. Because suddenly, she remembered something. A phrase her mother had whispered in sleep when Ava was little, the one Ava thought was nonsense. Open the crate, and open the cage. She looked down at him again. Not afraid now. But stunned. She wasn't a rescuer anymore. She was an accomplice. And something about that felt right. Like this was meant to happen. Even if it wasn't meant to be understood. Ava descended the north side of Ridge 9 like a soldier in enemy territory, slow, crouched, aware that every tree might be watching her. The boy was silent again, wrapped tightly to her chest, limbs tucked, breath shallow. He hadn't stirred since the blast. But she could still feel the hum of energy beneath his skin. He wasn't unconscious. He was recharging. Every few minutes, the air would crackle faintly around them. Not audibly, but Ava could feel it in her fillings, in her fingertips, like walking through charged air before a lightning strike. Her pace quickened. By the time they reached tree cover, Ava had already counted 3 drones in the sky, all now flying higher, further out, like they'd been warned off. The pulse must have scrambled their sensory arrays. But that meant they'd come back stronger. And not alone. She needed shelter. Fast. That's when she remembered the Ranger cache bunker just off the service trail, a buried cold storage unit disguised as a supply depot. Mostly used for avalanche rescues. If she could reach it, she could hole up long enough to plan. She angled northwest. The forest thickened, good for cover, bad for movement. 30 minutes later, she reached a rise above the tree line and spotted the orange vent pipe sticking out from the snow, the cache bunker. She scanned the clearing. No tracks. No aerial eyes. Good. She slid down the embankment and dug out the entrance panel. With effort, She yanked open the reinforced hatch and slipped inside. Dark. Cold. But safe. She hit the emergency light toggle. Pale amber filled the room, casting long shadows. The bunker was small, one bench, one heater unit, shelves of ration packs and thermal foil, a defunct landline hardwired into an offline emergency relay. No signal. No camera. Perfect. She set the boy down carefully on the padded bench and unzipped the sling. He opened his eyes. "You moved us," he said. Ava knelt beside him. "You kind of forced the issue." "What the hell was that pulse?" "I don't control it." "Not yet." "Not yet?" He sat up slowly. "They gave me rules." "You broke them." Ava stared. "You know who they are?" "Yes." "And who are you?" His gaze flicked toward her jacket, at the edge of the old laminated photo still peeking from her pocket. "I'm what she left behind." Ava sat back, heart pounding. "You mean my mother?" He nodded. "She saved part of herself. A memory. They tried to destroy it. She hid it in me. In you? In a pattern. A rhythm. You call it DNA. They call it recovered script." The words didn't sound rehearsed. They sounded implanted. Ava dug into her pocket and pulled out the photo. The boy took it gently. "She called this version pre-Cinder," he said. "What's Cinder?" "The fire that erased everyone connected to the project. Including her." "Project?" He nodded again. "Project Holland." Ava's breath caught. "My last name is." "I know." On the wall behind the heater, someone had etched letters into the metal paneling, deep scratches that looked decades old. Ava got closer. She wiped the frost away. "Phoenix isn't a place. It's a backup." Below that, a small carved triangle with a line through it. The same symbol that had been embossed faintly on the corner of her mother's photo. Ava turned back to the boy. "I need to know what you are." "I'm not alone," he said. Ava frowned. "Meaning?" He pointed toward his chest. "Her memories aren't just data. They talk to me. Sometimes they take over. Like possession. Like returning." Ava shivered. The word didn't feel metaphorical. It felt literal. He laid down again. "When you open the crate, the protocols began. They'll chase us now. But they won't stop me from finishing her memory." He closed his eyes. "But they'll stop you, if they can." Ava stood. Grabbed the emergency heater and set it next to him. She had questions, dozens. But none would matter if they got caught. She needed to prep the exit. 30 minutes later, she was back outside, scanning the tree-line for movement. Nothing. Then her earpiece buzzed. Not the S8 phone. Not the beacon. Her own internal comms, long-range, shortwave backup. Someone was patching through. She froze. "Ava Holland," a calm voice said. "We're not here to harm you. We only want the prototype." She didn't reply. "You're not military. You're a ranger. Not even active service. You're not trained for this. Let us take him and you walk away." She stayed silent. Then clicked the mic once, short, sharp. "Morse 4, no deal." "Very well." The signal cut. And the snow began to fall again. Back inside, the boy opened his eyes. "They'll send echo agents next." "What does that mean?" "They don't knock." Ava couldn't sleep. She sat on the cold metal floor of the cache bunker, her back to the wall, rifle across her lap, eyes locked on the boy who slept without shivering. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm so precise it almost didn't feel human. Outside, the wind had died down. No trees creaked. No birds called. Just the bunker's quiet hum, the soft orange pulse of the emergency light, and the sensation, deep in Ava's bones, that she was no longer alone. She pulled out the photo again, flipping it in her fingers. Her mother, smiling. Clean uniform. Date, 1983. Why had she never seen this image before? Why had her father, who died when she was 9, never mentioned her mother's military history in any detail? Then she noticed something. Something subtle. On the back of the laminated photo, faint but pressed into the paper, a second layer, a shadow of a second image underneath. Ava held it up to the light. Heat-reactive ink. Invisible, unless warmed. She pressed it against the emergency heater. Slowly, black lines emerged. Coordinates. And one phrase in block text. Relay keyword, strigiform. Ava whispered the word to herself. Strigiform. The boy sat bolt upright. His eyes open, glowing. Not alarmed. Activated. Ava jumped back. Did you hear me say it? He nodded. You said the relay word. The trigger. Trigger for what? He looked around, scanning the room like he wasn't seeing now, but something else entirely. Then his voice changed. Lower. Firmer. Older. This is Lieutenant Natalie Holland. If you're seeing this, you activated the contingency. My daughter, my blood, you found him. You have to listen. Ava backed away, heart hammering. The boy was speaking, but the voice was her mother's. Perfectly. Down to the cadence. Down to the breath. His name is not his. He doesn't have one. He's the memory vessel. A carrier. Project Holland was shut down after it worked too well. Too fast. Too deep. They tried to kill every prototype. I smuggled him out. Put him on ice. I left the photo for you. If I'm gone, it's because they found me. If you're alive, it's because they haven't found him. Yet. Ava couldn't speak. Couldn't even blink. The boy's face remained expressionless. But her mother's voice kept coming. He has memories that don't belong to this century. Language is not spoken anymore. He remembers things from before. Even things I never told anyone. That's why they fear him. That's why they will kill you. Then, silence. The boy's glow faded. His body slumped slightly, and he blinked like waking from sleep. Ava sat down hard, unable to catch her breath. That was her. Yes, he said simply. She's in you. Yes. He reached for her hand. She knew you'd find me. She saw it. Ava gripped his fingers, not cold, not hot, just alive. Real. How do I protect you? She asked. You don't, he replied. They already see you as marked. The only way to protect anything is to finish what she started. And what's that? He looked her directly in the eye. Wake the rest. Before she could ask what that meant, the bunker's external vent hissed, a change in air pressure. Ava was up in a flash, rifle drawn, calm silent. The boy dropped back down, still. She moved to the hatch, peered through the frost-glazed view slit. A shape moved past, silent, smooth, head tilting unnaturally. Black armor. No visor. A faceplate made of mirrored carbon. An echo agent. Not a drone. Not a soldier. Something in between. Ava whispered, "We've got company." She pulled back and flipped the emergency lighting to red, then hit the thermal dump switch. Outside, heat signatures would spike, scattering their location by several meters. A delay tactic. The boy opened his eyes again. Do you have a flare? She nodded. 3. Use one to distract. Use one to draw them closer. Use the last one inside the snow. What happens then? You'll see. Ava armed the first flare and cracked the hatch. The Echo was scanning the outer wall, slowly raising a metallic sensor wand. She popped the flare left and shut the hatch. An explosion of red and smoke burst out like a beacon. The Echo turned, moving to investigate. Ava counted silently. 1, 2, 3. She yanked the hatch and launched flare 2 right. Another burst. The Echo turned again, body twitching slightly, almost irritated. Then, Ava unlatched the floor panel beneath the boy's bench. A crawl pipe. Narrow. Old. But usable. She grabbed the boy. Hold tight. They slid inside just as the hatch slammed open. Heavy boots pounded above. The Echo was inside. Too late. They were beneath. Crawling through ice. 30 feet later, the pipe opened into the outside snowpack. Ava dropped out first, then pulled the boy clear. She turned and shoved flare 3 into the hole, igniting it directly inside the crawl space. A boom followed, sharp and contained. And behind it, something else. The snow sank briefly, like something retreated. Ava stared at the boy. He simply nodded. That was the first memory she buried in me, he said. Ava swallowed. What was it? He looked her in the eyes. The word for erasure. In their language. They ran. Across packed snow, through skeletal trees, along ridgelines marked only by decades-old scars where avalanches had once carved paths into the forest. The boy stayed quiet, clutched tightly in Ava's arms, but his breathing was steady, not labored. His warmth never dropped. Behind them, no drones followed. No aircraft scanned. The Echo agent had not reappeared. But Ava knew better than to think they'd lost it. If it wanted to follow, it would. Quietly. Efficiently. It wasn't about search and destroy. It was about control. Containment. By late afternoon, Ava reached a shelf overlooking the ravine near Grady Pass, a remote outcrop used only by logging crews in the early 2000s. Below it lay a long-forgotten entrance, a moss-covered hatch partially frozen shut. The boy stirred. This is it, he said, lifting a hand toward the ridge. Ava knelt, brushed away ice and branches, and found the faded words etched in the steel. Subgrid Vault A3, Ghost Files. She looked at him. You knew this was here? I don't know how I know. It's not a memory. It's like pressure. Like the thought wants to be found. Ava pulled open the hatch with a grunt, metal groaning against years of neglect. Below, stairs spiraled into darkness. The boy moved first. No hesitation. Just purpose. Inside, the air was dry. Clean. Preserved. The emergency lights flickered to life as they stepped onto the landing, soft white illumination triggered by movement. The walls were lined with cold-rolled steel. Concrete behind that. Whoever built this bunker never wanted it discovered. They passed abandoned lockers, rusted clipboards, shattered vials. Then they reached a room marked Holland, Prime Node/1A. The boy's pace slowed. He reached out. Ava touched his hand. Is this what she was protecting? He shook his head. No. This is where she left the others. Ava hesitated, then opened the door. It wasn't a lab. It was a nursery. Metal cribs. Old four-stands. Monitoring gear that hadn't powered on in decades. There were names taped to each bed. Most were missing. But 4 remained. One crib still had a thermal lining inside, untouched. Ava approached and lifted a plastic file sealed and weatherproof casing from the wall. Inside. A Polaroid of Lieutenant Natalie Holland holding a swaddled infant. A document labeled Project Holland, Dual Vector Series. Genetic Subline, Remembrance Pathway. And beneath that, an ID tag with Ava's name on it. Not the boy's. Ava's. She wasn't just her mother's daughter. She was part of it. Not just an error. A test. She dropped to the bench, hands shaking. Why didn't she tell me? The boy stood still. Because you had to choose this path freely. If she told you, it would have been programmed into you. Then it wouldn't work. What wouldn't? The signal. He reached over to the far wall and touched an old transmitter panel. The lights came on. Not red. Not white. Blue. Steady. Pulsing. Ava stood. That's not power. That's recognition. Of what? Blood. The panel unlocked with a hiss. Behind it, a spiral staircase descending even further. The walls were marked every 10 feet with etched numbers, 1A, 1B, 1C. Then finally, Substrate 3, Mirror Path. They stepped into a new room. No cribs. No wires. Just 4 sealed doors, equidistant, each with a faint glow at its frame. The boy walked to the far left door and pressed his palm against it. It hissed open. Inside was another child. Lying in stasis. Alive. Breathing. Glowing faintly. Eyes closed. Ava staggered backward. Her mind reeled. Who are they? The boy whispered, my kin. Pieces of her. Pieces of others like her. They're like you? Some more. Some less. All half awake. You want to wake them? He turned slowly. They're waiting. For the signal. It's not time yet. But soon. He nodded. I needed you to find me. I couldn't start without the catalyst. She stepped back into the hall, heart pounding. What if I don't want to wake them? He looked sad. You already have. Then came a noise, faint, metallic. From above. Boots. 3 sets. Descending the hatch. Ava grabbed her rifle. Echo? The boy listened, eyes narrowed. No. Not Echo. Then who? The boy looked toward the stairs. Cleaners. The sound of boots echoed down the stairwell, not hurried, not stealthy. Just deliberate. 3 sets. Ava pressed her back to the curved wall, rifle raised, eyes locked on the entrance to the vault. The boy stood beside her, not afraid, watching the shadows grow as the cleaners descended. She whispered, what do they want? To erase, he replied. They weren't built to contain. Only to end. End what? Everything she tried to remember. The first figure emerged, black armor, no insignia, not military but surgical. A clean white helmet with no faceplate. In one hand, a weapon like a defibrillator fused with a firearm. The other 2 followed, one smaller, slimmer, scanning with a biorig, the third, tall, holding a canister that hissed cold vapor. Ava didn't wait. She opened fire. The bullets hit the lead cleaner, center mass. Nothing. The figure flinched, staggered slightly, then absorbed the kinetic force like sponge to water. No blood. No voice. Just movement. Ava ducked behind the reinforced doorway. The cleaners advanced. The hallway lights dimmed. Then flickered red. EMP? Ava asked. No, said the boy. A decision. The stasis room behind them came alive. The other pods, the sealed doors, began glowing brighter. each pulse stronger than the last. Ava turned. "What's happening?" The boy pointed at the walls. "They're waking." "I thought you said it wasn't time." "You made it time." The nearest cleaner raised its weapon. Ava stepped in front of the boy, squeezing the trigger again. A spark burst from the hallway light, then the circuit blew, plunging them into emergency strobe. The cleaner fired, a beam of concentrated energy. It missed her head by inches. The wall exploded. But Ava didn't retreat. She ducked and threw her last flare. Flash pulse. A burst of magnesium light blinded the room. The boy stepped forward. His eyes lit gold. Not blue. Not white. Gold. He reached out with both hands. The energy in the room shifted. Ava could feel it. The cleaners paused. Then shook, as if glitching, scrambling their internal signals. And collapsed. Not with a boom. Not with a scream. They folded. Compact, bone-snapping collapses like puppets with severed strings. Metal and flesh wrapped into themselves. And then stilled. The air was dead quiet. The boy fell to one knee. Nose bleeding. Ava rushed to catch him. "You okay?" He nodded, barely. "Too soon. Not full strength. But enough to protect you." "You used her?" "She used me. Just a little." He looked toward the pods. "They're not all like me. One of them is stronger." Ava frowned. "Stronger how?" "She remembers more than anyone." The second pod opened. Inside, a girl. Older than the boy. Maybe 13. Hair dark. Skin pale. Eyes still closed. But her body hovered 2 inches above the ground. She wasn't asleep. She was paused. The moment Ava stepped forward, the girl opened her eyes. Jet black irises. No whites. Just void. But she smiled. A calm, genuine, terrifying smile. "It's nice to meet you, Ava." Ava staggered. "You know me?" "We all do. You're the last tether. You're the anchor. That's why she gave you the picture." "What are you?" "I'm the one who remembers the beginning." The boy looked nervous now. "She's early," he whispered. "You woke me," the girl said. "That's all I needed." From the stairwell came a low sound, not mechanical. Not boots. Not drones. Growling. A new cleaner? A new phase? The girl turned to the hallway. Lifted her hand. The growl stopped. Silence. Then she spoke without moving her lips. "I am the vault. I am what she feared. But she loved me anyway." She looked at Ava again. "You want to understand? Follow me." She turned and walked through the back wall. It opened, not mechanically. Reactively. A secret passage lit by memory. Ava hesitated. She looked at the boy. "You trust her?" He didn't answer immediately. "Then, she is her." Ava blinked. "What?" He nodded. "She was the first. The alpha. Your mother's prototype. Not a clone. Not a copy. The origin." Ava felt her knees weaken. "I'm following her," she said. He followed. Through the passage, the architecture changed, no longer concrete and steel. Now, smooth walls, curved like bone, lined with glowing lines that pulsed like heartbeats. The girl led them to a circular chamber with a massive table in the center. On it, a holographic projection. Not of terrain. Not of buildings. Of faces. Dozens. Hundreds. Each labeled. Each connected to Ava's mother. The project was massive. Global. Then the projection zoomed in on Ava herself. Her childhood. Teenage years. College. Everything. Tracked. Predicted. Planned. The girl whispered. You were never free. You were guided. But not for control. For protection. Ava shook her head. That's not possible. Your entire life was a containment field. You are the only person who could reopen the vault and not be consumed by us. Ava stepped back. Because we remember you. The hologram shifted. A final face appeared. Natalie Holland. Alive. Smiling. Endgame file prepared. Awaiting user command. Ava looked around. User? The boy pointed at her. You're the key. The room pulsed with quiet light. Ava stood motionless before the projection of her mother's face, not a photograph, not a simulation, but something more precise, more human. It blinked. It smiled. It waited. The girl hovered just above the floor beside her, eyes black, hands folded like a monk awaiting prayer. The boy stood silently at Ava's side, gaze downcast, as if preparing for a judgment that had already been written. Endgame file prepared, the hologram said again. Awaiting user command. Ava exhaled. What happens if I confirm? The girl responded, not aloud, but directly, her voice threading through Ava's thoughts like a whisper spoken in an old dream. The vaults open. The memories reconnect. All the locked cells begin to reassemble. Ava stared at her. And what does that mean? We return to a collective state. You mean, you merge? The girl gave a small nod. Pieces of her, of your mother, exist inside all of us. But those pieces have been fragmented. Separated by time, by trauma, by purges. If you command the engine to activate, those fragments will reform. Into something whole. Ava turned toward the hologram again. She planned all this? Not entirely, the boy said softly. She planted us. But not even she knew how the roots would grow. Ava stepped closer to the console. The interface pulsed faintly, like it was breathing. Touch to initiate. Say the word. Say the word. Ava looked at the phrase hovering above the console. Keyword required for core integration. She swallowed. Strigiform? Invalid. The girl stepped beside her. It's not a word she gave you, she said. It's a word you gave her. A name. Ava blinked. A memory surfaced. She was 4 years old. Her mother had come home late from work, hair windswept, eyes haunted. Ava had asked her, Mommy, what's your secret name? Natalie had smiled and whispered something. A name. Ava repeated it now. Calyx. The console shimmered. Key accepted. Memory engine online. Ava backed away instinctively. The walls shifted, folding outward. The entire room transformed into a spherical chamber, the walls now composed of a flowing tapestry of memories. Videos. Photos. Files. Some digital. Others, older. Handwritten. DNA threads. Neural code. MRI scans. Diary entries. Dozens of Natalie Hollands. Hundreds. Each a variation. Some identical. Some broken. Some evolved. She didn't want to be forgotten, said the girl. So she split herself across time and space. Every time they tried to kill her, she rewrote herself somewhere else. She used us as mirrors. Ava whispered, this is what Project Holland really was. The boy nodded. Not genetics. Not enhancement. Memory preservation. through offspring, through recursion, through us. In the center of the room, a shape rose from the floor, a seat. Not mechanical. Biological. It pulsed with blue light and responded to Ava's heartbeat. Seat acknowledged. Key verified. Initiate assimilation. Ava stepped forward. Then froze. What happens to me? The girl's smile faded. You won't be erased. But you won't be alone anymore. Ava looked at her hands. Will I still be Ava? The boy answered, you'll be more. She turned away. Stepped back. No. The console dimmed. The girl frowned. You refuse? I pause. She turned toward the door. I want to know why she split herself before I choose to rebuild her. Suddenly, alarms flared. The walls pulsed red. External perimeter breach. Unauthorized entry. The boy gasped. Echo. They're breaching the mountain shell. How long? Minutes. Maybe less. The girl nodded toward the seat. If you sit now, you change the game. We'll have the full archive. The full memory. We can fight. Ava stared at the seat. Then the door. Then the console. And made her decision. She walked to the side panel and pulled a lever labeled Secondary Recall. The ceiling above peeled open, revealing a secondary chamber filled with sealed capsules. Each marked with a name. None of them hers. She pointed. Send them up. Into the world. The girl's eyes widened. You'd awaken them? The sleepers? They deserve a choice too. Ava pressed the button. Sleeper release initiated. Primary memory engine locked. The girl's eyes burned bright. You've delayed the integration. Ava stared back. I'm not your key. I'm the reset. Above, deep within the trees near Grady Pass, the snow began to crack open. From beneath roots and rock, silvery pods began to surface, each glowing faintly. One by one, they opened. Children stepped out. Teenagers. One elder. None of them gasping. None panicked. Just awake. Waiting. Ava and the boy returned to the bunker door. The system had collapsed into silence. Lights dim. Console still. Only one line remained glowing on the wall. Calyx must choose. But she already has. The girl had vanished. Outside, echo agents fanned through the trees. They paused at the pods. They scanned. Confused. Signals scrambled. One by one, the awakened stepped from the trees. And the agents backed away. Something had shifted. Something new had begun. Ava held the boy's hand. I didn't open the crate. He looked up. She continued. I opened the engine. The footage leaked 36 hours later. Not by Ava. Not by the boy. But by a sleeper. One of the teenagers who emerged from the forest near Grady Pass had activated a latent protocol embedded in the subdermal mesh of their spinal column, a biosignal hardwired to transmit to a long-dead node inside a European satellite long thought deorbited. The footage went global. Not in hours. In minutes. Multiple feeds. Interior shots of the vault. The cleaners folding like collapsing insects. Ava's face, stunned in front of the memory engine. In the moment the pods rose through the snow. News stations didn't call it a leak. They called it a reveal. The government scrambled. Statements were rushed. Denials tripped over each other. The phrase Project Holland entered public discourse for the first time. Then came old whistleblowers, gray-haired, trembling, not all of them sane, who said they'd been waiting for this. That the girl with black eyes had spoken to them decades ago. In dreams. Through signals. That she was real. And now she was free. Back in Alaska, Ava stood on the ridgeline overlooking the clearing below. Dozens of Awaken walked among the trees, not lost, not dazed, but purposeful. The boy stood beside her, silent as ever, hands tucked into his sleeves. "I thought it would be chaos," she said. "It was. For decades," he replied. "This is what healing looks like." She nodded, eyes distant. "And the others? They're still waking. Across the globe. Quietly. Carefully. The vaults don't open all at once. They open when they're remembered." Ava turned. "And what about me?" He looked at her. "You've already changed everything." Behind them, a makeshift field terminal buzzed. It wasn't military. It wasn't corporate. It was reclaimed. Old tech, repurposed by the sleepers. Technology designed for secrecy, now being used to broadcast truth. Ava approached it and sat. The console recognized her instantly. Calyx, verified. Memory thread continuation. Y/N. She hovered her hand over the interface. Paused. Then typed. N. "I'm not continuing this," she said aloud. The boy tilted his head. "Why not?" "Because continuation implies control. That we can steer this." "We can't." The black-eyed girl, now dressed in weatherproofed gear stitched from recovered vault fabrics, approached from the trees. "You're right," she said. "You didn't open the crate to lead. You opened it to let go." "Let go of what?" The girl smiled. "The illusion that we could bury memory forever." Down in the clearing, an echo agent kneeled. Unarmed. Helmet removed. A woman in her 50s. Tears streamed down her face. "I helped erase people like you," she said to a sleeper standing before her. "I didn't know who we were killing." The sleeper, a boy of maybe 16, leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Then walked away. Ava watched. "You think this lasts?" "No," said the boy. "Nothing does. But it lives long enough to change what comes next." Then the forest lights flickered. Aurora Borealis danced above them. But it wasn't natural. Not entirely. It pulsed in sequence. Like a heartbeat. The girl looked up. "She's not gone," she said. Ava followed her gaze. "You mean?" "She's everywhere now. The integration may not be complete, but the signal was sent. Every node across the earth knows. And remembers." Ava lowered her voice. "What do we do with that?" The boy smiled. "We begin again." Suddenly, the console behind them buzzed. A new message blinked. Inbound message, classified channel, origin, Phoenix. Ava tapped it open. The screen filled with static. Then a voice. Cracked. Faint. Female. "Ava. If you're seeing this, it means you opened it. I don't have long. I never did. I buried this part of me at the edge of everything. The place where thought stops. You were my last prayer." The voice paused, then steadied. "What we did was wrong. Brilliant, but wrong. They told us memory was survival. But survival without grace is just conquest. You're the only one who can decide what parts of me deserve to live." The screen shimmered. "Delete the mirror, Ava. Don't carry me into the next world. Let you be the story." The voice vanished. The console screen faded to black. Ava stood in silence. The boy's eyes flickered. "What did she say?" "She wants to be forgotten." He nodded. "She always did. but she also wanted someone to remember that forgetting her was a choice. Ava placed her hand over the terminal. Paused. Then said, "Archive the engine. Lock it. Let the world have itself again." The console dimmed. Somewhere deep beneath them, the vault sealed shut. No more activations. No more fragments. Just the living. And the present. As the sun broke across the horizon, the snow melted just enough to expose a patch of soil beneath Ava's feet. She knelt, pulled a small silver disc from her jacket, the original crate's biometric seal. She pressed it into the earth. Then whispered, "Rest now, Mom." And stood. The forest around her stirred. Birds returned. Wind danced in the trees. And far in the distance, sirens, not of war, but of arriving civilians, news crews, healers, questioners, historians. Witnesses. Ava adjusted her coat. The boy slid his hand into hers. And together, they walked toward the light. 1 week later, the snow began to retreat from the forest. Not just from heat, but from absence. Absence of the storm. Absence of the interference that had blanketed the region for decades. Avalanches stopped. Drones stopped circling. Even the cleaners vanished, their bodies dissolved by some kind of internal shutdown protocol once the vaults sealed. No military came to claim them. No agency stepped forward. The world moved on. Or tried to. Ava stood in the cabin once used as Ranger Station Echo 9, her former post. Now retrofitted into a triage center for survivors, journalists, and scientists with questions they couldn't phrase aloud. She wasn't in charge. She didn't want to be. She just answered when asked. And stayed silent when silence felt right. A small team from Sweden had arrived that morning, linguists and signal archivists. One woman, in her 70s, asked Ava if the girl with the black eyes had spoken in tongues they hadn't seen before. Ava nodded. She didn't speak them. She was them. The woman smiled with tears in her eyes. "I dreamed her voice in 1973, she whispered. Ava believed her. Outside, the children played. Not children anymore. Not exactly. The boy had not aged in appearance, but his behavior had shifted. Less cryptic. More grounded. He learned to laugh. To chase birds. To tell jokes. To skip rocks. The girl, the one who called herself the Beginning, hadn't been seen in 5 days. Some said she walked north. Others swore she was spotted in a monastery near Mongolia. Ava didn't chase the rumors. She simply hoped. On the 7th night, the stars above the cabin glowed brighter than anyone had seen in decades. Some blamed solar flare effects. Others blamed satellite shifts. But Ava knew. The memory network was still alive. Not active. Not integrated. But present. Like a book on a shelf, waiting to be opened. At 3:41 a.m., her handheld beacon, long dormant, buzzed once. She sat upright. Checked the readout. 1 line only. Last signal received, Project Holland terminated, memory thread sealed, ID, Ava Calix Holland. It wasn't a warning. It was an acknowledgement. She was no longer just a node in her mother's plan. She was its final witness. Later that morning, a journalist asked her if she thought the vault would ever open again. Ava shook her head. No. Then it's over? She looked at the boy skipping stones at the lake's edge. The snow melting around his boots in perfect circles. The air humming faintly near his shoulders. No, she replied. It's just finally beginning. Back in her bunk, Ava kept 3 objects in a tin box. The laminated photo of her mother in uniform. The silver disc from the crate. A handwritten note, old, faded, that she hadn't placed there herself. It had appeared one morning after the vault was sealed. The handwriting was unmistakably her mother's. The message: "You gave me an ending. Now give yourself a beginning." She reread it every night. In time, Ava began recording what had happened, not digitally, but by hand. Ink and paper. Carefully sealed and hidden in tree hollows, thermal caves, and mountaintop cairns. Because this wasn't a story the next generation needed to watch. It was one they needed to find. Bit by bit. Like she had. One day, the boy came to her with a question. "Why did you choose not to finish the engine?" She thought for a long time. Then said, "Because if I finished it, you wouldn't get to ask that question." He smiled. Then asked another. "What name should I choose for myself?" She knelt beside him. Looked into his eyes, now soft, human, no longer glowing. And said, "Whatever name makes you forget hers, and remember yours." That spring, green returned to the valley. New birds nested in the pines. Ava found herself smiling more than crying. The crate was gone. The vault sealed. But memory, true memory, never really ended. It simply grew quieter. More thoughtful. Less afraid. And in a quiet corner of a remote cabin, far from satellites and storms, a single crate-shaped indent remained in the forest floor. Moss grew over it. Ferns reached toward it. No sign remained of what had once been hidden. Just a soft hum in the roots. A pulse. And a truth. What we bury, we remember. What we remember, we become.